a skit like that, right? You could show it with the explanation that this is a villainous character. Right. So if you don't like what he's doing in terms of chasing illegals out of the country, if you don't like that, that's fine, because he's a villain. He's supposed to be doing bad things, right?
And you know what's really interesting even today? You know, wrestling has always fallen, as sports entertainment has always fallen into this kind of weird gray area category. Because in comedy, you could still do that today.
Sure.
In drama, you could still do that today, right?
Right.
In sports entertainment, you can't do that today because it's viewed in a different context by the audience.
Do you think it has to be viewed by that context, or if you were running a promotion or something, would you try to focus more on the fact that these are people portraying characters? Here's the credits at the end. Here's this guy's real name.
The latter. Because otherwise you become much more confined in terms of your ability to tell a story and to solicit comedy and to get comedy. You know, you have to be a little outrageous. You have to do outrageous things. But when you're viewed in this weird kind of gray area context, it makes it very, very difficult.
What do you think of that, JBL?
I think I completely agree. I think it's insane. I mean, you had Carol on Walking Dead basically exterminate some teenager one day, a young girl. You know, and people didn't outrage. That's too far. You know, fans chanting that's too far. You know, and now you have fans chanting that's too far. Really?
Yeah, for what?
Yeah, and I've never understood heel sections. You know, if a heel has a heel section, he's not doing his job. He or she is not doing his job. And if people are comfortable with the heel heat, it's not good heat.
Right.
Exactly.
You know, and why is sports entertainment held to a different standard than Walking Dead or Game of Thrones or any other show?
Like in 2018, there should be Twitter outrage over a bad guy wrestler, because that's how people express not liking something, right?
You don't like a character. You say, hey, I don't like the attributes of this character. Right. Or I really love the attributes of this character.
Yeah.
That's what it's for.
It's interesting, though. I mean, people don't like that. But I think
let me give you a great example. Years ago, first time I'd seen what that now is called the smart mark. I don't even know what they still have that term now. But I'd never met somebody who had written for one of the dirt sheets back in the early '90s. And he told me, I just think that work rate for Killer Tim Brooks is terrible. First time I'd heard that term, work rate.
By the way, so the first time you hear the term work rate is by one of the wrestling gossip people that are trying to use wrestling lingo.
That's right.
Thinking that like, hey,
that's right. Yeah, try to use the lingo, which just never works. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, he just can't work. It's just terrible.
Killer Tim Brooks can't work.
And I said, well, let me ask you a question. If they brought in Stan Hansen to beat up Killer Tim Brooks, would you pay? He goes, I'd pay double. I go, you're right. He's not a worker. That's what you want. You want people to hate the guy.
That's the whole
and Killer
thing,
sold
isn't it?
tickets. I thought Killer was a great worker, but that to me sums up some of what you see with the hardcore base.
None of you guys have ever had a problem with heat. None of you guys have ever had a problem being the villain. None of you guys have ever. In fact, if you feel, I think all three of you, if you feel like you're starting to get cool or you're starting to get cheered, you'd go and do something that pisses people off more.
Absolutely.
I walked out one day and I saw a JBL shirt, and I called Vince right away and I said, why are you selling my shirts? Because I had no idea who we were. And I said, this kills me. Why would you want a heel to sell a shirt?
Right.
And he said, you're right. They took it off the shelf right away.
But that person didn't buy one. They had spilled something on it. We gave them one of those shirts because we had so many.
You sold it. But last thing you want is somebody in the stands to be wearing some of your merchandise, saying, "Oh, this guy is cool," and the person next to him wanting to boo. You know, you got to embrace that heat, and there aren't many people that do. You know, a guy like Randy Orton does. He certainly loves it. A guy like Miz does. I mean, there are a few.
Jericho does. Yeah.
Jericho does a terrific heel.
That's a small handful.
But it's an incredibly small handful, and it's always been a small handful.
Yeah, and I think it's getting smaller now because it's not just dealing with the crowds. It's dealing with social media. It follows you now. So you have to be comfortable with people who don't separate the person and the character following you and being like, you suck, you suck, you suck.
Remember when we had the Un-Americans and they quit because they were getting too much heat? Real heat?
Didn't want heat.
Somebody called them a bad name in the airport and they said, we can't take this. And
I live in Tampa. I'm not an Un-American. I'm like, oh my God. They hate you. I know they hate us. I can't take it.